Hey guys, so nice to see you all here today. Welcome to another one of my live streams. I am so happy to see everyone. As you can see, I am currently in the hospital. I almost didn't make it to this live stream. I came within hours of dying. The central line that I had in my left chest right here got infected and I could barely stay conscious. Then, yesterday, the entire line was so degraded that it completely fell out while I was on the bedpan, and I had to be packed and gauzed, put in a portable monitor, and rushed down to surgery to have a new one placed. My new line is in my right chest, and it is infusing beautifully. Got everything hooked up to it. Everything's going in. However, I am not out of the woods yet. I still feel really ill and will probably need a second surgery to clean out the rest of the infection right here in my left chest. Anyway, oh, hi, Dave. Anyway, about today's reading. We last left off in chapter 27, where Cassie had her call to the suicide hotline traced, accidentally locked the EMS out of her house, had to have the police call her parents, who were on a date night, at the hotel and tell them to call her grandparents so they could unlock the doors and sign consent for Cassie to go to the hospital. Her grandparents and the police ended up playing tug of war with Cassie, as her grandpa insisted she would be safe staying at home, and the police insisted she had to go to the hospital. Finally, the police won out, and Cassie and her grandpa took a ride down to the hospital in the ambulance. But Cassie was so psychotic and disoriented that she really had no idea what was going on. We'll begin reading here at the emergency room. I was lifted onto a gurney, and then new faces came in. They asked me questions. What's your name? How old are you? What's your date of birth? I just shook my head and cried. I couldn't think of the answers to these questions. It scared me that I couldn't think of these answers. A nurse came in with a little green pill of Haldol. This will help you calm down, she told me. I swallowed it with a sip of water. I needed calm. Finally, they left me alone. The voices began to quiet. My brain began processing thoughts instead of scrambling them. I was able to remember my name and age. I saw my grandpa in the hallway. He was talking to some police officers. He looked scared and angry at the same time. I was terrified that he was going to get in trouble. I knew this was all my fault. This time, I was aware of crying before I felt the tears on my cheeks. Someone came in. They asked me if my grandpa ever hurt me. I told them no. They looked like they didn't believe me. My grandpa wasn't in the hallway anymore. I would later learn my dad had given him instructions to stall for time until they got back from the hotel. Bad idea. Later, my mom came in. I was so scared she'd be mad. Her mouth was droopy with exhaustion. There were dark blacks and blues under her eyes. Hours later, a woman from the Mental Health Crisis Center unlocked the crisis room door. She asked me what happened. I told her about calling the hotline, having the ambulance come, trying to poison myself, and getting played tug of war with. I left out the voices. Mentioning them only ever made things worse. The woman asked me if I still planned on killing myself. I told her I was going to have to, I explained that I was going to need to overdose at school because that was part of the plan. I didn't tell her whose plan it was. She just looked at me with one of those long, hard looks, and then she pulled my mom out into the hall to talk to her privately. They decided that I could go back home. They decided that the whole situation had occurred because they didn't want my parents to go away. I tried to explain that I wasn't just being manipulative, but they didn't even begin to listen. My grandpa never got in trouble, although he had been questioned by the Department of Children and Families, DCF. I was quite relieved that he was okay. We got back home at 5 a.m. As soon as I was back in my own bedroom alone, the voices started up again. They wanted me to release the poison. They said the poison was why I kept having so many problems. They claimed if I released it, then my life would turn around and I'd be better off. It was 5:30 a.m. I had just gotten back from the ER. All I wanted was to feel better. I was willing to try anything. The voices said I had to bleed a lot and it would help me get most of the poison out of me. I decided that my stomach was the best place to cut. It was my open blank canvas. I took a pin and a pair of sharpened quilting scissors. Then I pinched up my skin on my stomach and snipped a triangle cut into it. I barely felt any pain. Using the pin, I dug around inside the cut to make it bigger. Then I went in with the scissors again. I kept repeating that process until I had a wound the size of 2 quarters. I was bleeding a good amount, and if I looked past the blood, I could see that I'd gone deep enough to see a layer of fat tissue. It didn't gross me out. It intrigued me. Finally, without bothering to try and stop the bleeding, I cleaned off my surgical instruments and then lay in bed and tried to sleep. The next morning crept in on me. My mom woke me up, told me it was time for school. I got out of bed and slipped my stuffed penguin, Perky, into my backpack. It was hard to say goodbye to my parents. Before I left for the bus stop, I still hugged each of them extra hard and whispered, "I love you," all the while trying to swallow back the painful lump developing in my throat and chest. I didn't cry until I was on the school bus, sitting in my usual seat with my face pressed against the window. Then the hurt poured down my face in liquid pain. The rest of the bus ride, I spent trying to stop crying, but I couldn't. A couple of the other kids that I'd once talked to, that had once been my sort of friends, asked what was wrong. I just told them I was fine. They nodded, shrugged, and turned away to talk some more with their real friends. I didn't really care. I'd rather be left alone. I cried more and tried to ignore the voices who were excitedly jabbering about how I was finally going to do the right thing, how I was finally going to kill myself. I couldn't ignore them. I cried harder. When we got to school, I followed the mass of other kids who were pouring off the buses. They turned left and headed toward the school. I turned right and headed toward a nearby gas station. First, I glanced around, paranoid that someone was going to spot me, but everyone was too caught up in their own thoughts, feelings, and worries to notice one small girl taking the wrong path. In the gas station, I felt a little lost. It took me a while to locate the aspirin. Once again, my hands shook as I took the money out of my pocket to pay the cashier. The cashier didn't ask any questions or hassle me in any way. He just accepted the cash and handed me the bottle of flavored water and the bottle of aspirin. My legs were still wobbling once I got outside. I went into school. Once again, I worried that I'd be spotted and that my plan would unravel. Once again, everyone was too caught up in their own dramas to want to play a part in mine. I slipped into homeroom and sat at my desk, pretending that I could actually hear what the teacher was saying over the narrator's excited whispers about how I would die before the day was over. The first two classes of the day passed in a blur of noises, chairs scraping, kids laughing, voices talking, colors that were too bright, and images that were too sharp. I planned to wait until lunchtime to take the overdose, but during third period, I decided I couldn't handle waiting. Quietly, I excused myself to go use the girls' room. My legs were trying to give out as I walked down the hall, but by some miracle, I made it into the safety of the locked stall. I took the pills, first one by one, then two by two, and then in small handfuls. I took them with mouthfuls of flavored water. The powdery and bitter texture made me gag, but I managed to take deep breaths and hold the pills down. When the whole bottle was gone, I threw it out in the garbage, covering up the evidence with mounds of crumpled paper towels. I even threw out the bottle of flavored water, just in case I could somehow give away my secret exit strategy. I was feeling super paranoid at that moment, so anything seemed possible. After disposing of all incriminating evidence, I went back into the stall and sat down on the toilet to figure out my next move. Going back to class seemed too scary. I didn't have to want to see any more faces. Going to Diane's office was a bad idea, because what if she figured out how bad, just how terribly wrong my day was going? What if she figured out I was dying? Staying in the locked stall seemed the safest. I started to feel sick about 45 minutes after about 45 minutes of sitting in the stall and writing my journal. Mostly, I was just super nauseous, but my heart was pounding really hard too, and I felt a bit like the room was tilting on its side. My ears had started ringing too, and my head was starting to hurt worse than it had ever hurt before in my whole life. The smell of the bathroom was not helping matters either. I decided that I had to leave the safety of the locked stall and venture out into the hallway. My legs were wobbling dangerously as I pushed my dizzy body down the hall. I was headed towards the library because I figured it would be pretty quiet in there. I had to stop several times on the way down the hall to swallow down vomit or hold the wall so I wouldn't pass out. Luckily, no one besides me was in the halls. It was the middle of a class period, so that much luck was on my side. I knew there might be a teacher in the library, but I planned on telling them that my history teacher had sent me down to type up a paper for class. What I hadn't counted on was how nervous I'd feel, or how fast I'd be hyperventilating, how I'd be feeling even dizzier with the toxic levels of aspirin swimming around in my bloodstream. The farther I got down the hall, the sicker I felt. By the time I reached the library, I was barely standing. My English teacher was in the library. He took one look at the color of my face and the speed of my breathing and asked me what was wrong. "I don't feel so good," I choked out. The room wouldn't stop spinning now. It felt like being on a tilt-a-whirl ride that I'd been riding for hours. Vomit rose up in my throat again. Again, I swallowed it down. The room was fading in and out. The shaking was getting even worse. I couldn't slow my breathing. Taking another step into the room, a chill shook my whole body. Then suddenly, I felt really hot all over. I took one more step. My knees buckled under my weight. The room spun even faster. I lost my footing on the floor. I was aware of the sensation of falling, and then I wasn't aware of anything. A thick blackness enveloped my whole body. When I woke up again, the first thing I heard was my English teacher. I could hear his voice saying, "She kind of just collapsed. I think she might have hit her head when she fell. She told me she wasn't feeling well right before she fell. No, I don't know if she has any kind of chronic illness. No, it didn't look like a seizure." The second thing I was aware of was a hand on my wrist, belonging to the librarian. "Are you okay?" the librarian was asking me. Her voice sounded far away, especially because the ringing in my ears was even louder now. I started to tell her I wasn't sure, but I started crying instead. My hands were shaking now. I was hyperventilating again, and I was feeling like I wasn't sure if I wanted to die. It's okay," she reassured me as she helped me to a sitting position and rubbed my back gently. I kept crying. Still was unable to get any words in through my tears. My English teacher was giving the address of the school to the person on the other end of the phone. I realized they were probably going to take me to the hospital. I realized that they were going to try to keep me alive. I didn't know how I felt about it at that moment. The way I felt was scary. The thought of living longer was scary. But so was the thought of dying. Why did things have to be so confusing? The librarian pressed a small paper cup of water into my hand. I was still crying and shaking too hard. The water sloshed over the edges of the little cup. I tried to take a sip, but my mouth quivered too much, and most of the water dribbled down my chin instead of making it into my cotton ball dry mouth. I felt the water splashing onto the front of my shorts, and the cold wetness made me shiver even harder. And that is the end of Beyond Manipulative, Chapter 28 of Was I Ever Normal? Any comments or questions for me, guys? Anything you want. You can ask me about my health condition right now, what's been going on for me medically. You can ask me about the chapter I just read. You can ask me about my book and then the republishing of my book by Random House or another publishing company that is happening soon. You can ask me about the LA Times Festival of Books that this book is going to, the literary agent I just got, whatever you want to ask me about saving destiny that now is literary agent, whatever you want to ask me about, you can ask me about. Go ahead, I'm ready. With my life? Alright, so right now I'm waiting for the cultures to come back on the site of this infection before I know when they can do the surgery to clean out this site. I'm going to need to be on IV antibiotics for another 2 weeks for this site once I get discharged from the hospital. Dave, she does feel alone and how she feels stuck with the one she wants to leave her alone. Yeah. She wants help and she doesn't want help. She wants help, but she doesn't know what kind of help she wants, and she doesn't know how to ask for help. And she's scared to ask for help because she doesn't know what the ramifications of it will be. Does that make sense, Dave? Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, what the problem is that she's scared if she tells the truth about the voices, that people won't believe her about the voices. I'm so glad you love my books. That's awesome. Have you bought a copy of Was I Ever Normal? Oh, I am so excited about the LA Times Festival books and the London Book Fair. That is going to be a major thing. I can pick up such a good publishing deal there. I am so excited about it. I might even be able to pick up a publisher for Saving Destiny there, because now I have a literary agent. So he's really helping me out a lot. Yeah, I know. I want to try to make Was I Ever Normal on Audible. I want to try to do that soon. Thank you, Elaine. I'm really gonna try to make them on Audible when I republish them with the major publishing house. That's one of the things I'm gonna ask for, is to make them on Audible. I'm also gonna try to read more Saving Destiny online soon. I just feel like it makes sense to finish reading Was I Ever Normal online soon first, so it's not too confusing by reading two books at once. Thank you so much, Dave. That means so much to me. I am so glad my work is helping people. That is the main thing I want to do, is to help people with my work. To help people who are like me but don't have the way to put into words how they feel. So you get it. So you do get it. Yeah, that's what it is like. Unfortunately, my condition is terminal, so it's even like harder to wrap my brain around it. It's really difficult. But I'm so glad you understand, and I'm so glad I'm able to help you understand. Yeah, I have gastroparesis too. I have total digestive tract failure. I'm so glad I'm able to help. You're able to understand me. That is so great that you're able to understand me. I'm glad I'm able to put into words the way you feel. That is really awesome. I'm glad you understand me. Really cool. Really, really cool. Do you have an underlying condition for your TPN, EDS, and dysautonomia, or is EDS your underlying condition? Oh, the doll with me today is Alina. This is Alina. Come here, Alina. Say hi, Alina. She even has her own binky. Hang on, let me find her binky. This is her binky. That's her binky. I actually have a matching outfit to her. Alina says hi. Say hi, Alina. She's saying hi. Well, I better get going for now, because I told all the nurses and PCAs they can't come in while I'm doing my live stream, but I can't keep them kicked out for too long. So EDS is the cause of all your. That's what I figured. That's what I figured. See, I don't have EDS. I have a autoimmune mediated small fiber autonomic polyneuropathy is my main condition, and I'm in the terminal stages of it. But EDS is a horrible condition too, so I'm so sorry you suffer with that. I better get going so I can let my nurses back in. But thank you so much, guys. I love you all, and I'll be posting another live stream soon. I'm so glad you could all make it. Thank you, Dave. Oh, you do too? That's interesting. Is yours autoimmune mediated? Bye, guys. Love all you all. Take care. Take care. Bye. Take care.